Welcome along to NUFC Matters. I've got two special guests today. Every Saturday we always have Lee Clark. Hi, Lee.
Hi, Steve. Okay, and, Rob.
And we've got Rob Lee today as well. How are you doing, Rob?
Very well, thanks. Very well. Enjoying the sunshine down in the south.
Oh, see, he's got to throw that in just because it's grim up here and misty and splashing down the rain. You know, I've had me facing the cooker, man, to try and get a tan.
Lee, you must have rosé in that cup.
I haven't, Steve. You can't drink rosé. Even me, not being connoisseur or anything, but even I've got to have a hot cup of tea the day with this weather we've got. If I had the weather Rob had, the rosé would be getting smashed. You know that.
Have you had...
Get off this rosé, mate. The sun is out.
Hey, Rob, you like this one? I tell the people who were coming on previously, get yourself the Sainsburys rosé, house rosé blush, Pinot Grigio blush. It's only £4.50 a bottle, mate. It's top class. And I know you don't like spending the pennies, so that'll suit you down to the ground.
Rosé I drink as well, yeah.
Belter, $4.50 a bottle.
Classic. You're going to get a sponsorship deal at some point, Lee. That's going to be it, I think. Sainsburys.
Come on, Sainsburys, fill your boots.
Right. Okay. We haven't really moved any further forward with the takeover, Lee, since we last spoke. But I don't think that the silence is anything to worry about. I think we're just, we're moving towards the end game, aren't we?
Yeah, I think that there hasn't been much being said this week, and I think that's a lot to do with Amanda Staveley having the issues with the Barclays Bank in the High Court at the moment, so other things to get on with. Plus the Premier League, as we've talked about many times, they'll be getting concerned with their project restart of the Premier League midweek and then going forward the first Newcastle game next weekend, obviously. But the couple of snippets I've seen, Steve, is that Mike Ashley's obviously starting to ask questions now what the hold-up is. So that's a good sign in terms of Newcastle fans. We know that he accepted the deposit and he wants the deal done, and sounds like he wants the deal done as quickly as possible. So it means that he certainly has no interest in blocking the deal, which he has done in the past. So that era could hopefully be over, and then the takeover can go from there.
Yeah, I think, it's interesting to hear about Mike Ashley apparently wanting to come. He's coming back and he's wanting the deal done. There was no direct quotes from him, but ultimately we've got, you've got a newspaper report saying that he's coming back. Rob, are you taking a positive out of that Mike Ashley is on his way back and wanting to sort things out?
Yeah, you would hope so, wouldn't you? I mean, obviously, there's been no hurry, really, has there? There's been no football being played, so. And Amanda Staveley had a court case still going on, so there's no hurry. I don't think we should panic. I think this has probably got the furthest it's ever got with a takeover of Newcastle. And you know what Newcastle's like? There's always dramas going on. So it'll be soon.
100%, you're right. There is always a drama going on. Have you seen anything of Amanda Staveley, Lee, in court? I mean, she's cut a very impressive figure under pressure, to be fair.
Yeah, apparently so. The bits and pieces I've seen on TV and in the media, she's fighting a really strong case in terms of, trying to recoup this lost commission money for bringing a certain deal to the table for them. So it just shows that she's a very, very strong personality, strong businesswoman, has all the right credentials to be running, a major football club, which if the takeover happens and what we're led to believe, what will be invested both in the infrastructure and in the squad, the club can get back to being a major football club, especially in a domestic game to start with, and then hopefully in Europe again.
Rob, do you think you would see Amanda Staveley be like the chairwoman? Do you think that's something that Newcastle will be looking at? She's obviously used to being in front of the camera and dealing with the media. Do you think it would be a refreshing change to have somebody like Amanda in charge?
Yeah, I think why not? I mean, she seems a very impressive person of what I've seen of her. So, yeah, let's have her as the chairman. As long as she communicates with the fans, I think that's what they haven't had much from their previous chairman. we had no communication with Mike Ashley for years and years and years. And when he does come out and say things, he says the wrong things. So, yeah, have her there as a chairwoman. Why not? I mean, it's to say she looks pretty impressive. So,
I think that what will help Steve and Rob. I think from a managerial point of view, you'll have a manager who'll just be fielding questions to the media about the football side from now on, rather than the financial side and what's going to be happening in terms of amounts of money you're going to have to spend, or is there going to be any money to spend? On a lesser scale, I had that at Birmingham City when basically I was the spokesperson for the full club when the owner, lost his court case, all his assets were frozen. The club was in turmoil with embargoes and financial difficulties, and very rarely spoke about the football team and about the players, which were the most, alongside the fans, which are the most important people. And you couldn't, I'm there as the manager, and that's what's been happening in Newcastle over the last, decade or so. The managers hasn't really had to field a lot of questions about the football side of things. It's always been about the finance and potential takeovers, and is he going to be given any funds to operate in the summer or the winter transfer window? So hopefully this will happen, and then there'll be someone like Rob says who, speaks to the fans, communicates to the fans what's going on in terms of the football club itself. And then when the manager has to do his media work, he just talks about the football, and that'll be a lot easier for them, whoever that manager may be,
Yeah, we've seen a lot of that happen with Rob, where, Steve McLaren, Alan Pardew in particular, have literally just been given everything, whether it's welcoming players to the club, whether it's coming out and defending what the owners have done, changing the name of the stadium, whatever. Like Lee says, it's the right thing to do, isn't it? Letting the manager get on with the football.
Yeah, I think if you ask any manager as well, that's all he wants to do. If you ask Steve Bruce, if he's still there, he'd be delighted if he can just do the football side of it. And I mean, we're going to have so many things that need doing. We all know the club well, and it's not just the football side. That's just one part of it. It's the academy. The academy is not great. The training grounds, probably, it's nowhere near a Premier League training ground. So all these things that need to be addressed can be addressed by her, and then the manager can just get on with hopefully buying players that suit Newcastle United.
Yeah. Getting on to the football side of things, there was a report in the Liverpool Echo, Lee, that the proposal to allow the Premier League sides to submit alterations to their current 25-man squad has been rejected by the clubs. Now, this hasn't been confirmed, but obviously that leaves us in a bit of a situation as far as one of our players is concerned. It means Newcastle won't be able to field Paul Dummett in any of the remaining games. Now, obviously, Paul was injured, and that's why he wasn't submitted to the final 25. Now he's fully fit. The same situation, of course, to a lesser extent, affects Xavier, Jamie Sterry, and Jack Colback. But Dummett's the real concern. How do you think we'll cope without him?
Well, when Paul's been fit, he's been always in the starting 11. I think whether that's been at left back or left wing back or one of the left-sided centre back of a three. So, that will be a big blow because, when you're coming back and that, there's no way these players, Rob will tell you, in this period that they've had to get ready in football fitness terms, these players will not be 100% match ready. But the good thing is all these clubs are going to have the same issues. It's not as if other clubs have been able to train with their full group earlier than everyone else. They've all had the same time scale. And obviously there's a talk about being able to use 5 substitutions. So you're going to need as many players as you possibly can for these remaining games because they're going to be played in a short period. And if you're losing one through administration situation, no fault of your own, it's going to be a tough one, especially, as I said, when Paul's usually fit and available, he's in the starting team. So that'll be a big blow to Stephen. And like we talked about, there's possibilities of injuries already to the squad since they've come back from training. There was a report earlier in the week that there was up to 5 players. Now they might just be little niggles and knocks where you don't use them for these training games what they're having, and you keep them ready for the Premier League. But still, they're missing out. I mean, they've had a longer break than they usually do with pre-season in any way, especially the way the game goes now. They get a maximum of 4 to 5 weeks for their end of season break. They've had over 8 weeks, possibly 9, 10. and then they've only got like a 2 to 3 week prep period with 1 or 2 friendly games. So it's like what you're seeing in Germany. The intensity is not the same level as it was. So it's good, and you're risking the players picking up injuries as well. So you're going to need to use them 5 subs and have every player available for each game, because if they're coming midweek, weekend, it's a tough schedule.
Good news, Rob, is that obviously Danny Rose and Lazaro, and we're led to believe as well, Nabil Bentaleb have all, finally agreed to have their loans extended, which means at least they'll be available, because with these games coming thick and fast, it's there is that risk, as Lee's saying, of injuries. We've essentially got, it's almost like a double Christmas period. We've got to fit all of these games into a month, really, to get the seasons finished on time.
Yeah, it's like Nash says, you need as many players as possible. And, we didn't mention, if somebody gets corona, then they have to go and self-isolate. They miss a week, at least a week, maybe 2. So I think the Premier League have got to lapse that rule just for the end of this season. We're playing so many games with a short space of time. Having no really pre-season, you're definitely 100% going to get injuries, especially some of our players who are, let's say, have got injury prone.
Yeah, let's come on, Andy Carroll Nash.
You're harsh, Steve.
Well, I'm harsh, but I didn't realise he was injured again. But no,
that was. Yeah, he was the name that stood out when I seen the report that these 5 players had picked up injuries, and Andy was one of those names. And especially with the history that he's had in his final years, 2 or 3 last years at West Ham, since coming to us and starting a handful of games and picking up 3 or 4 different injuries. That's the problem with Andy. It's not a repetitive injury. He seems to pick up a different new injury, muscle injury as well. So it tells you that his body's not accepting the pressure it's getting put under. So if he's come back after this long period, gone back into full training, and I think they've even modified his training days as well to try and get him out on the pitch, and he's picked up another injury. Now we could be going over the top. It might just be a whack or a contact he's had in training, and they just not want to risk him. But it doesn't bode well in as me and Rob keep saying, that the short period for the games to be played and the type of intensity the Premier League's usually played at, it's going to be difficult not to pick up injury, and certainly players like Andy, who has that history of doing that.
Rob, the situation with Andy Carroll, Matty Longstaff and Manquillo is getting more complicated, though, because on the 1st of July, they're free agents. So, we could have a situation where, the 3 of them don't want to stay. So, what happens then?
I think there's so many unanswered questions, Steve, that it's the same with the, my lads when the Elliott's at Luton and the Championship. They've got Charlton players there and not refusing to play. So there can be so many unanswered questions. What I will say is, a fit Andy Carroll, I think Newcastle need him desperately.
100%.
We need him to score goals, and I think, we have to manage him. We have to get him out there. I think, and it's we have a lot of games, and I'm sure he won't play in. Well, he definitely won't play in all of them, but it's an opportunity to play him for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and try and get him as fit as we can, because. A fit Andy Carroll, I'd sign him again all day long.
You would sign him. That's quite controversial. I've seen a lot of people talking about this on Twitter, Rob. And I've interviewed Gibbo and Superman this week, and both of them have said they wouldn't sign him. And I think what Gibbo had done was he'd written down like the stats, essentially the stats of goal scorers. And of course, Andy hasn't scored this season. He's had opportunities, but he hasn't scored. And he said, he's taken up a position in that squad which he felt was unnecessary. He certainly wouldn't keep him on next season, but why would you keep him?
Well, we've got Joe Linton up front who don't score goals.
Yeah, good point. You wouldn't keep him either.
What I did say, a fit Andy Carroll. But if he's fit, I'd still, in my opinion, he's better than Joe Linton. That's what I think. That's my opinion.
No, I agree with you.
That's it. That's the key, Steve. The fitness of Andy is the key. Yeah. And I know, John, you've mentioned about Gibbo saying about his goals. It's not just what Andy does in terms of scoring himself. It's what he brings to their teams. I see, there's been games where he's come on and it's been really flat when I've been at St. James's, and he's lifted the team. He's given them a different outlet. Almiron's enjoyed playing off him. St. Maxim's coming in off the line, playing off him, because they know not just lumping balls up him. It's got to be quality where he can not just win the header, but direct it into runners, people breaking from midfield, getting the first header in when crosses are coming in, and then it'll drop to other people. Yeah, of course, when you're an attacking player, you're judged on the goals you score. But I think Andy, over the years, has changed things in the way he sees it. It's about being a team player and what he brings to the rest of the group. And as Rob says, for me, a fit one, there's no one for his type of striker. There's no one better than him in the country, and certainly in Newcastle United, if he's fit, you have him on that team, because what he does as well to the opposition, he frightens them, because the centre halves know they're going to get something they don't usually get in the Premier League. And they're going to get bullied, and they're going to be getting battered from first minute to last. And that's something you don't really see now in the Premier League. It's like a dying breed of a number 9, because it's like the false 9's the in thing at the moment, or two smaller guys playing off each other. So Andy coming in, the centre half's thinking, wow, we're not used to this. It allows the team to be stronger. But as he said, he mentioned it, the key to resign them is the fitness key. If he doesn't play a high percentage of games from now to the end of the season, I would imagine it would be very doubtful to justify how he does stay.
Rob, how important are the fans at St James's Park? The noise, we often hear that it's like having a 12-man. Obviously, we're not going to have that. Now, is that going to be a big issue, or do you think it'll help the likes of Joe Linton, who seems to cave under the pressure? I mean, what's your views on no fans?
Well, I think it's be different. I think it's be difficult. It'd be very, very strange. I think we've seen some strange results in the Bundesliga, haven't we? Of home sort of advantage, sort of like goes a little bit out the window. I think maybe because the crowd does make a huge difference. A lot of the big clubs now, it's a huge difference. I was just saying to Elliot the other day, going to Millwall now won't be that bad, really.
At least as an opposition manager there, at least you'd go out of the game and your suit or your tracksuit wouldn't be covered in spit. You wouldn't need the dry cleaning on it straight away, that's for sure.
Yeah, so you're right, John. Might find it easier for him. What we're hoping is actually there's no crowd there. But I think the Newcastle fans have been pretty good to him, really. I don't think they've given him too much. Really, really good to him. Someone who's cost £40 million, but it's not his fault that. And maybe someone who's like I said to you before, whoever's brought him, he's saying he's not a centre forward. Well, then I don't know what he is if he's not a centre forward. That's what I find strange. But listen, whatever helps him, if that helps him and he scores 4 or 5 goals and does well in the last 9 or 10 games, then great.
You mentioned that earlier, Lee, about Andy Carroll, giving the crowd a lift, and that in turn lifts the team. I mean, we're not going to have that. Is that going to be a big miss?
Of course it is. And, you get certain games where you're not really firing, and it's a boring 0-0, but then all of a sudden you produce something, or you're 1-0 down and someone produces a bit of magic and it's back to 1-1 and you've got 10 minutes to go and the crowd get right behind you and they lift you and they drive you forward and they help you get that win that didn't look like you were going to get it. You haven't got that now. So you go like 1 down, you've got 10 minutes left and you get an equaliser. You haven't got that whole stadium then pushing in behind you to try and, force that winner, force errors from the opposition. And Rob mentioned it earlier about the Bundesliga. There was a stat, I think, last weekend, over 60% of the away teams won the fixtures last week in the Bundesliga. So, I know a couple of the teams down right in the relegation zones, the Brightons of this world, they wanted to still have the home and away games because they wanted the familiarity of playing in their stadiums, but they're not going to really get that help from the crowd as well. So I think and as you've talked about players, Rob will back us up. There's players you play with are brilliant Monday to Friday, then they get out on a Saturday and they've got to play under pressure at clubs where the expectation levels are huge and they can't do it. And Joe Linton's had such a bad time. He might need this, where he knows if he has a bad touch or an attempted goal that goes high and wide or whatever, he misses a good chance. There's not going to be anyone criticising him from the stands. And so he might need something like this. This could be the thing that changes for him. And I totally agree with Rob's, what he said about it's not Joe Linton's fault, the price tag. Certainly isn't. No player puts the price tag on his head. But there's someone inside that football club who decided he was worth smashing the club transfer record for, not just smashing it, just obliterating it. And also, I mean, you've talked about this, giving him the number 9 jersey, which was a crazy decision straight away. He should have used a different shirt initially. And whoever's thought, like, when they coming out and saying he's not a striker, well, he's certainly not a wide man, like they keep saying. He's definitely not that. So, you know, there has to be repercussions. But hopefully, you know, he comes good, and this little period has been a help for him.
Well, he scored 2 goals in the 2 run-outs that we had. I mean, you know, obviously Newcastle's A squad against the B squad. He scored in that game, and then we played Middlesbrough in a behind closed doors friendly, and obviously we're 2-0 down, but we won 3-2, and he got the winner in the last minute. So he's doing all right with no.
Did you see the goal? Did you see the goal on the official site?
Yeah.
Watch Rob. If you haven't seen the goal, watch the goal on the site and slow it down. Do you know how he does the centre half when he's got his back to play? He miscontrols the ball, and the centre half goes where he should be touching it, and he misses it, and he runs in, and then he taps it in. And it was one of his sons who put it on, said, "Dad," he even said on Twitter, "a bit of Brazilian magic." And it was like, oh, clutching. Honestly, get it on and slow it down. And he miscontrols the ball, and he sells him with a miscontrol. But hey, that sometimes when you're in a bad run and you're a striker, that's what you need. Sometimes, you know, you hit a shot and it goes through the keeper's legs or something, and it gets you up and running for the goals. Your confidence level comes back. That's what everyone's hoping. It's fingers crossed, because if this period doesn't work out for him, it's tough, because if it means that his career is going to be over quite quickly, because if the new people come in, you would imagine that they'd be looking to them as attacking areas to improve. How you're going to be giving them away, because no one's going to be paying anywhere near what was paid for them.
Yeah, 100%. That's the big issue. I thought I'd throw a curveball in for you today. I was looking through NUFC.com before we came on, and one of your former teammates, lads, is celebrating his birthday today. Do you know who it is?
No.
I'll give you a clue. He was German.
We had one, didn't we?
No, I had 2.
Did we?
Did we?
And this is the trick one. Yeah, it's a trick question. Oh, Mark Ziegler. Do you remember him?
Ooh.
Mark Ziegler.
Mark Ziegler? What era did he play?
1999. And he arrived.
Oh, well, I wasn't there then. Rob, you must know him. He must have been a good player.
He arrived on a week-long trial from Stuttgart, and he played 2 friendly games, Rob. One against Celtic, which we lost 2-0. One against Stoke, which we won 2-1. Another one of Ruud Hullit's tremendous attempts at bringing a good goalkeeper to the club.
As soon as you mentioned Ruud Hullit, then obviously he ain't going to be a good player, is he?
That era's erased from Rob's memory.
Right, earlier on, I went on Twitter and I asked a few people to ping some questions in, and we've got some lined up. So James 12 Dryden says, Rob and Lee, who is the most underrated player that you've played with and against? So Lee, we'll give that to you first.
Wow, underrated. Well, it's probably when you say things like that, it's probably the players who, in our team, well, the defensive-minded players, because it was all about the attacking side of our team, and it was always about, you know, the nickname we got, the entertainers, and the way we played the game, and, you know, we're exciting to watch. But obviously, people like Darren Peacock, who usually ended up just him and the goalkeeper at the back, and that was it. The rest of them were just bombing forward, and that's the way the manager wanted it. So, you know, Mark Cottager was a great lad and a good player, a strong character, but didn't get a lot of plaudits. He just got on with his job. And I think it's those types of lads, really, because, that era, all that people wanted to talk about was the attacking players that were in the team, the amount of chances we created in each game, the amount of goals we scored, the exciting football we played. So, there was that, wrong situation that used to say we weren't very good at the back, when in fact we probably had the second best defensive record in the league. It was just the fact that some of the infamous games at Anfield for us were the ones that get highlighted, but not what we've done over the course of the season. I think during Kevin Keegan's era we used to lose one game on average at home per season, which was a ridiculous record, really. So those type of lads really for me were the players that were the ones who were underrated.
Yeah, I think Scott Sellers as well, I think, was vastly underrated. I think he done brilliant for us. And then, unfortunately, David Ginola turned up, I think. That was done him, I think. I think if you players that playing with Scott Sellers, he looks like, he don't look like a footballer, really. He had a little pot belly and wasn't very... he wasn't very quick. Had no right foot whatsoever. It was just his standing foot. But he was just on the ball. He was just a quality player. Could always see a pass and cross. Done the right things at the right time. And I thought he was vastly underrated, really.
That's a good shout. To be fair, he was good. Another great lad in the group as well. But as Rob says, what when you're looking to sign players, especially playing in that wide position in a 4 that Scott did. The first thing you talk about, he got paced, and he certainly didn't have it, but he was 4 or 5 passes ahead. I mean, I think I've seen footage from that Liverpool 3-0 game a couple of days ago when Coley scored the hat-trick, I think. And Scott was on fire that day. I mean, it's some of the football that we played, but his final passes, and as Rob said, he was just unfortunate. And that's what happened with the lads. All of it became under pressure for our positions all the time because there was always another player coming in of a higher standard, so you had to raise your game. I mean, I always talk about the championship side that when we won the league, and I was watching it was the anniversary of the Leicester game, and I was watching that, and Ned scored a hat-trick, David Kelly, but within a week he was being told he was surplus to requirements. He'd scored over 30 goals, and it wow. And he was getting sold to Wolves, I think it was, $750,000, and didn't get the chance to play. That's how ruthless the manager was, but he knew what he wanted. He obviously brought Peter Beardsley, but it was just every time that a new signing come in, you knew you were under pressure. The standard of the training just went up. The standard of the performances went up. And I think that's why we had, the era that we did, the level of performance. You had to. If you didn't, you just went by the wayside if you weren't prepared to fight.
Well, we had a lot of players, didn't we, in those times that actually couldn't even cope with the training, couldn't they? No. Training was so intense, and we trained exactly the way we played. It was a hugely high standard. Lots of time we had thousands of people watching us as well, and some players just couldn't even cope with the training, let alone the playing on the field. They couldn't cope with the training. I remember Barnes saying to me, he'd been there about a week, and he said, "Rob," he said, "I haven't even touched the ball yet. It just takes you so long, just the way we train."
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to adjust, otherwise, as I said, we had players there. I mean, I remember Jason Drysdale. I played against Jason Drysdale when he was at Watford, left back. I was a right winger, and I thought, good player, by the way, strong, quick, like a good left foot. I mean, he came to our place, and he honestly just got totally lost in the, didn't he? Steve Guppy, another one.
Oh, I was just about to mention Steve. He went on to play for England, but he's like a rabbit in the headlights. He came onto the training pitch, and he couldn't match the intensity of how we trained. I've said this many times, Rob, when I've done these with Steve. We had that, like you said, we trained how we played, but even though we're good pals off the pitch, it was ferocious, the training as well. It was like head to head. We were good pals, but we knew we had to probably be better than our pal to get in the team, and we're ready to do anything to get that position in the team. And so we weren't frightened to fall out with each other just to get the end result on a Saturday. But it never then got took personally, because we would rather fall out with each other at 3 o'clock on a Saturday and then be happy as anything at 5 o'clock because we've won the game, rather than not fall out with each other and we lose. Because, like I said, we didn't lose a lot of games, and when we did, it was a horrendous feeling. So that's what we had in. We had a determination. We had great respect for one another, but we weren't frightened to one, get stuck into each other in training in a competitive way, but also to nail each other when we're in training or in a match day. And I think when you're brought up in that type of manner, it doesn't become a problem. It only becomes a problem if you take it personally. And what it never was, there was never a personal attack in terms of when we're having a go at each other on a match day. It was to try and make it better and improve you if you weren't having, what everyone expected. And the standards were so high. And Rob mentions the thing about the supporters. Obviously, we had Maiden Castle, which was a council-based training ground. That on like Christmas holiday times, we could have up to 10,000 there. So you were getting judged by the fans in training as well. So you could never take your foot off the gas.
Yeah, 100%. Technology's getting in the way again, lads. I've noticed we've got 5 minutes left on this Zoom call. So what I might do is we'll ask one more question, and I'll attempt to set the Zoom call up again so we can get the last half hour in. So a quick one, really, for you both. Lee, what's your favourite goal that you scored?
Well, always for me it's a difficult one because you always, as a local lad, and you've got the chance to play for your club. Is the first one, but for me, when you score and you don't get a result, it doesn't really matter. And especially my first goal was with a header, which I cannot believe, to be honest with you. So the first one that probably meant something was at St James's. We beat Hull 1-0, I think, towards the end of that season under Ozzy. But then you just remember, some of my favourite moments aren't particularly times when I've scored. It's been being part of the games and the games we've played in, and when we've played some unbelievable football, and you look back and you see the goals flashing up on, certain aspects of the media and TV and that now, and you see some of the one-touch passing of the goals that we've done. Like I talked about the 7-1, when we beat Leicester and they were in the playoffs and we'd already wrapped the league up, and some of the goals we scored that day and the type of football against a team who was in the playoffs as well, so make the play for a potentially strong team. We just blew them away. Then you think about, we blew Tottenham away 7-1 at St James's. One of Kevin's last games. I mean, Tottenham were a top team them as well, and they just couldn't live with all these type of things. A Man United 5-0, and it's just they're the types of things that stick in your mind. Is the goals not a lot of, doesn't high up on my list. Not that because I probably didn't score that many. That's why.
Yeah. Same for you, Rob. Peter Porkpie Robson's question: what's your favourite goal that you scored for Newcastle?
Well, I had a few really. I think everyone the fans remember is the Wembley one, but as Nash says, we lost the game, but it's still to score at Wembley for all the times we played at Wembley for Newcastle, and as you all know, didn't play well and lost all of them. And then just to score and see the fans, the whole of the Wembley just light up in black and white was a great experience. And my last goal against Man United, really, the last goal I scored for Newcastle again was we won that game. So, but there was, as Nash says, the memories of the football. I often get asked, would you swap it for a Premier League winners medal? And I genuinely wouldn't swap the 5 years we had under Kevin. The way we played football, and the way that we passed the ball, the team we had, the team spirit. I genuinely wouldn't swap it for that. I had the most amazing years, especially the first 5 years under Kevin. It was just amazing.
So we've had a quick technical break there, and Lee, are you still drinking tea?
No, I've gone on to the hard stuff. This replaces the cans, doesn't it? And Ed, Bex as well, if they want to give us a sponsorship. I'm trying me plums off here to get deals.
Ian Armstrong, he sent the next question in. He says he believes anyway, and I mean, just open the question whether you think you could have played together, lads. He says he thinks that Rob Lee, Lee Clark, and David Batty, he thinks you should have all played together in midfield. He says you all had different strengths and would have complemented each other. Clarkie's passing, Rob bursting forward and scoring, and Batty tackling. What do you make of that, Rob? Do you think that would have worked?
Well, probably not the way we played, no, because we played two. I think these days, I think it would have done if we'd have played 3 in there, definitely. To say, without a doubt. I mean, I loved playing with probably had the best spell when we were playing with Nash, when I was playing with Nash together. And we sort of like, I came in from the right when Foxy arrived, and then Nash, because he was such a good passer of the ball, he would sit back in. Listen, I think good players can play with good players. You know, they always say that if you have good players together, you can play together. So it would definitely. But I mean, no, I loved playing with Nash. I thought it was great to play with him.
We did have a couple of occasions, Rob, when we played. I played more on the right. I think I think Keith Gillespie or David might have been out injured, and we only had one really fit winger. Rob was then seen, you know, as a central midfield player, and Kevin played. Actually, the 7-1 Tottenham game was that game we played, and because I didn't have any pace, I used to play narrow, and so we basically were in the mid. I was in the middle of the pitch alongside Bats and Rob, and I think that day we combined for a few goals as well, you know. So we could do it, but as Rob says, the way the manager was, it was he always wanted 2 strikers, and the strikers we had at the club, it would have been scary if we didn't play 2 of them together. So it was always going to be difficult, and it was that's what we're talking about, you know, the competition for places. Peter could even drop back and then play, you know, as an attacking central midfield player in certain times. So like myself and Rob Lee, Dave Batty, Peter Beardsley, these were the types of players that you are vying for your positions. So, you know, there was those possibilities, and we did do it together, and we were successful at it. But, you know, Kevin wanted those wide areas, but where he wanted natural wide players in those positions. Certainly with Keith and David, two different types of wingers, and then so it left just 2 places in the middle of the pitch. So, but what that allowed was as well, you know, because we had the motivation. If you did get left out, there was never any, you know, yeah, of course you were angry and disappointed, but when you got that opportunity to go on the pitch, you had to try and take it and show the manager you were worthy of getting back in the team. And if there was ever someone had a loss of form or suspension or injury, there was no issues. You could come onto the pitch, or you were coming on as a sub and you just continued the way the lads had been playing previously. So that was the key for it all.
Yeah, 100%. Good stuff. Good answer. And next question comes from Mr. Liam. He says, Rob, he says, which of the lads who play in Newcastle's team today do you think could have made it into the entertainers team?
Is that a trick question?
Is there anybody? I mean, would you?
I better down this in one.
Do you think there would be space for Almiron or a St. Maximin in the team?
No. I mean, possibly the goalie. Of what I've seen of the goalie,
Bravka.
I think he's been very, very good. You know, and we had obviously Pavel and Shaka and very, very good goalkeepers, but it wasn't really. I don't think we had a world-class one. Probably Shea came along, you know, a bit later on. So I would have thought he'd have a chance. But the rest of maybe I'm just biased, but genuinely, it's a different era, a different way of playing. But the team we had, as Nash said, we had enough players trying to get in who would walk into this team that we've got now. You know, players that wouldn't even get on our bench would walk into the team, I think. But again, maybe it's me being biased or maybe remembering it all wrong, but I just think we had so many good players.
Same question, Lee.
I'm in total agreement, and I don't believe there's any bias in it. I've obviously seen a lot of the games over the last few years, and you know, we, like Rob said, lads on the bench and lads who weren't even on the bench who getting the starting 11 today. And why is it easy to say that? Because it's easy to say that those lads, you know, we had a squad that played a lot of games. There wasn't players who just played a handful of games. They played a lot of games. And we were always challenging for the big prizes. We were always being competitive till the final week of the season. And as I said, I think it was 5 years Kevin had with And I think we averaged 5 defeats in 5 seasons at St James's Park, which was phenomenal in the league. We got used to. We delivered what the fans demanded. They wanted to see exciting football, but winning football as well. Because it wasn't all the time that we were exciting. We played off great football. There was times we had to really dig in and get a result. We could do that. We had players who could win us a game with a flash of brilliance. We weren't playing particularly well, or we could go to town on teams and win 4, 5, 6, 7, and so that was the difference. And yeah, without a doubt, the goalkeeper. If he's St Maxim might get on the bench, or he might make the weight trip now and then, but he certainly wouldn't be threatening the starting 11 or whatever. Just because he has a little bit of something that I think Kevin might have liked in his wide players. He can beat people. And he can score goals, so he possibly could be an outsider, but there wouldn't be a lot of others.
Anthony Lewins has asked a two-parter. What I'll do is I'll ask you both this question again. I will go through the team. He wants to know your best Newcastle United 11 made up of the players that you actually played. So we'll start with goalkeepers, Rob and Lee. We'll go with you first, Rob. Who would your goalkeeper be?
My goalie, I think, would be Shea.
Yeah, I agree with that. Shea for me too.
Okay, no problem. Back four then, presuming you're going with a 4-4-2, just to make it easier, I think, for ourselves. 4-4-2 then, Lee, who would your back four be?
The back four? Well, one of the centre-halves would definitely be Big Philippe. Probably alongside Steve Howie. Because unfortunately, my second time back, I had to come back in the centre half. Was John Allen Boomsong. I'd go with Boy, because obviously during Euro '96, he was unfortunate that he picked up an injury in between a couple of the group games, where I think he would have played a good part of that. Me right back, obviously mentioned Hottager. We obviously had Warren in there. We had Watto. Stephen Carr, when I came back the second time, was a very athletic footballer. I'll probably go for my pal Watto at right back, and Bez at left back. Okay. Or Barry Venison, obviously. Venaz was very, very. He was very influential. And he was very, very consistent. He would be at least never less than a 7 out of 10 week in, week out, Venaz, and he was a good leader. So I'd probably go for Venaz ahead of Watto. I'll get a phone call about this, but I'll have to take that on the chin.
Rob?
I'll exactly the same. I think the centre halves would be Billy, if we can call him a centre half, but best ball playing centre half I've ever seen. Steve Howie, as Nash says at the time, 96, he was as good as anybody. I don't like putting him in, but Bez is probably in the left back.
Yeah, we're doing like massaging his ego.
You don't need that massage. I'm telling you, bloody ego. And then mention the name, Watto, Warren. I thought were both very, very good. But Venaz would have been, for me, he was the first really proper leader that when I came to Newcastle, he was a proper leader of men, so I'd probably pick Venaz.
Proper character as well, Venison, absolute character. His other question, Anthony, the second part is, who was the better finisher, Andy Cole or Alan Shearer?
Well, the stats tell you who he's the best in the business, bar none, Alan. But Coley wasn't too far behind. That's what I was saying about the type of strikers we played. Les wasn't too far behind. Peter wasn't too far behind. David Kelly had a brilliant goal scoring record. Tino was a terrific footballer. It's ridiculous the strikers we had to play with in that era. The quality. Paul Kitson come and done a strong job for us as well. But the stats that Alan has. They don't lie. He's head and shoulders above anything. He's the best number 9 the club's ever had. He's the greatest number 9 in the Premier League. So you know, you're not going to say someone else is a better finisher. And like we keep talking about, we'll keep repeating this. He practices finishing like he did on a match day as well. He didn't try and do anything cocky in a shooting practice or whatever. You know, he was putting his foot through the ball with ridiculous amounts of power, and he practiced how he played it as well, and that's how it paid off for him.
Yeah, you wouldn't see Alan play midfield in any of our practice games, would you, Nash?
No, I remember one day, Rob. I remember one day asking him to drop down and drop on the deep lying midfield player. And you can imagine what the response was there, can't you? Use nuggets, just get the ball in the box and I'll score. Brilliant. I ran back towards my own goal with my tail between my legs.
Chris Cooper, he asks both of you how much you both think you would be worth in today's market. Rob?
God, I've got no idea. No idea. The market's gone mad. I mean, I think this this coronavirus has for me has shown everyone that the market's mad. There has to be something done about it. Players worth £100 million is totally unsustainable to clubs. We're looking at clubs, lower league clubs, almost. Well, I think some will go out of business. And you're talking about players worth £100 million. It's ludicrous. It's madness. You know, we mentioned before, Joel, £40 million. I mean, who comes up with these prices for these players? And I just find it amazing. You know, even for our area, 1.75, I think Coley cost us. Sold him for £7 million, and Les was £6 million. It's lunacy of what Alan Shearer, worth £200 million. I don't know. It's
Well, I'll put it this way: there'd be a high number of our squad that would be in the top 10 transfers in the world in today's market, in my opinion, because we had some of the best players in their positions in the business and improved that both domestically and in Europe in club competitions, but also on the international stage. And as Rob said, you see, you had a spell, and what hopefully this COVID's done, it's brought the game back down to earth with a bit of reality, because the clubs won't have the spending power. But you were getting some average players going for astronomical fees. But that was the market the game's gone into. So when you look back, I've got a picture, I think you might have sent us it, and there's a picture on the training ground. There was me, Rob, Watto, David Ginola, Pav, Peter Beardsley, Les Ferdinand and Alan on the training ground. We must have been doing one of our warm-up running games. And someone said to us, put a value on those players in the picture. And it'd be ridiculous if the costs, if those type of players now, and what they were doing, they delivered on a consistent basis. So you could have been talking anything from £500 million to £1 billion in today's market and today's world, which people might think, shut up that. But when you look at what players who played in them similar positions have gone for in the last year or two, it's got to be a realistic shout that those figures should be, for that group. It's difficult to put a when you think, I know the world's changed, but we just talked about him being the best in one of the best in the world at what he does, if not the best Alan in his era. Costing 15 million, and at the moment we've got a striker who's cost more than double that, who's really, really struggling, and that's a barometer of where we are in today's world.
So it's safe to say you'd both be worth at least 41 million each then?
Let someone else, like we say, those players never put the price tag on my head.
I tried, Chris Cooper. I tried, but they wouldn't answer.
If I say I'm worth 41 million, get a few more there becks down me next, I'll be 250 million by the end of it.
David Harrison, he says, Newcastle United has been linked with so many of the world's top players, but I would prefer a slow build under new owners. I would prefer upgraded facilities, building a team with young talent. What are your thoughts?
I think he's spot on. I think that we need that. I've always said, Steve, it's getting the right. What Kevin was very, very good at was getting the right players to come to Newcastle and play for Newcastle. Because we had a squad when we was the so-called entertainers that everybody wanted to be there. Everybody enjoyed living in Newcastle. And I think what we've had recently is players maybe coming for the money, maybe coming because it's a Premier League club, but not really realising what Newcastle is, where it is. And I think we need somebody. There's plenty of young, good players out there, you know, like who have possibility of playing for Newcastle. I would like to see us buy some young players, as well as buying players that can obviously want to. But it has to be players that want to play there. You understand what I'm trying to say there? But don't want to be there, unfortunately. And our era, I'm a Cockney. I stayed 10 years because I loved it there. And I don't think if we bring players in on big money, let's talk about Coutinho. Would Coutinho want to live in Newcastle? Will he actually get the Newcastle? I'm not so sure, you know.
Yeah. Lee, same question to you.
Totally in agreement with what Rob's saying, you know. I just think that, I've said this many times, haven't I, that there has to be a certain type of player brought in initially. Because you're not going to, I know the finances might be there to try and convince the elite group of players, but we're not going to get them because the elite group of players want to be playing in the top competitions, i.e. the Champions League. So you have to build the club up. You have to get the club competing in those positions in the Premier League to get the club back into Europe, to be challenging domestically for the cup competitions and also the title, if not winning it. And, you know, you get a certain... And then when you get to those levels, you can go for the elite. But you also know, with me being a parent of a young player in the academy, that the infrastructure is massive for me. The academy, the facilities are embarrassing. The first team training centre is embarrassing for the era we're in. We're nowhere near the 21st century with the facilities. To think I retired playing 15 years ago, 14 years ago, and the facilities haven't changed. I've had a lick of paint and some new pitches put up. The infrastructure is going to be just as big as the investment in the squad, because the top players want to have the best facilities. And if we're going to rely on the academy, we've got to have an academy that's going to attract. If you're going to be competing against the big clubs in Liverpool and Manchester and London to get the best talent, you've got to give them incentives. You've got to bring them to a lovely, luxurious training facility. I go around the country with my son, and some of the facilities are phenomenal. And what's the saddest thing about it at the moment is Newcastle United, out of the three big clubs, Sunderland and Middlesbrough, have the worst training facilities out of all three, certainly for the academy. And now that's not right, and it shouldn't be like that. So like Rob says, the infrastructure and the team, the slow build, you know, example was what Kevin used to do. I know the windows were different because there was no transfer windows such, so he could sign anyone up until March. But what he done is continue to improve the squad for whatever level we were playing at. Did those players fit into his system? Did they fit into the group? All the players that came in during our era loved living there.
Yeah, the lick of paint you're talking about, the training ground was actually done by Rafa as well in 2016 or something, or 2017. So
they even had Rafa painting the training ground. Well, no wonder he quit.
You arrived at the club. Was that disgusted at the state of the actual training ground that he actually started making the arrangements himself? The players couldn't believe it. He was standing doing his own decorating. Absolute classic. Brian Cruz says, do either of you think that Kevin Keegan's tinkering with the team at a vital time cost us the title in that season? Rob?
No, I think there's a lot of things that cost the title, really. But I think, as we mentioned a little while, and Nash mentioned it, I think some of the times he was trying to get all the players, you know, all his attacking players into the team. And sometimes he couldn't quite get them. So he'd move Peter Beardsley, he'd move myself, he'd try and get Nash in, he'd try and get Tino in, he'd try and get so many players they wanted to play. And, you know, we keep saying we had so many quality players, and I think that was a bit of a downfall, really, if it can be, that we just couldn't play them all. And I think Kevin wanted to try and play them all sometimes, and we love the attacking football and the way that we played. But I listen, people would say to me, "Well, if we'd have sort of like been more defensive, we couldn't. We didn't have them players. We had attacking players. Our fullbacks were attacking. You know, Philippe Albert was the most attacking centre half there is in history, I think. And So everybody attacked, and we couldn't have. Someone asked me the other day. Nash talking about we lost one game a year at St James's Park. I don't remember too many 0-0s. I don't remember being involved in 0-0s when Kevin.
Yeah.
Being told run it in the corner. Kevin never let us run it in the corner, would he? He'd take you.
Absolutely.
Same question for you, Lee. Do you agree with Rob?
No, listen, it's a very, very difficult one, and especially I've dipped my toe into management as well. Like Rob says, you've got so many good players. You get a little bit of an indifferent result and you want to freshen the team up. You want to do things a bit, not in terms of the formation. That never changed for Kevin. Not in terms of the freedom, the belief he had in the players. But you're sometimes looking and you're thinking, can I freshen it up? And like I said, you were always thinking that the lads who weren't in the current 11 wouldn't, make the team weaker if you changed it. Or if you made a substitution early in the game, you weren't weakening the team. You weren't putting an inferior player onto the pitch. You were putting a player who'd done the business before on many occasions. So I think as a manager, it becomes a difficult one, and especially when you're getting so close. I think it was just the fact that there was many different things. You could say the tinkering of the team. Manchester United had more players with experience of winning the title, knew how to get the job done. And that could cost her. As Rob said, we're never going to change our ways. The manager would have never changed his ways no matter what. In terms of, defensive, as I've said, and I never say this as a criticism, I say this because of the quality of the management, but the quality of the players. We never spoke about an opponent ever. We never got a match report on an opponent or watched any footage on an opponent, because he thought, you are the best players in the country in your position. Go and prove it and go and win the game. We never practiced a set play for or against, because he had players who could deliver a set play. He had people who were leaders, who could organise ourselves. Derek Fazakli would give a remit in terms of positions where we needed to be for set players against. But we used to drag each other about and get it done quickly. There's no excuse making, and we just delivered like that. And I think nowadays sometimes people get overcoached. Coaches want to overcomplicate things for players rather than just give them a head and let them play. And you spend more time. I've done it myself. You end up spending more time on the opposition than you do your team, and just getting your players to play to their best.
Yeah. Sean Paul will give him the last question off Twitter. He says, money's no issue. Buying spree. 5 players you would love to sign. Rob, we'll start with you. Money's
no issue. Harry Kane. Get us a proper number 9, which Newcastle fans love. I think your team, if you've got somebody who can score goals, you've always got a chance. Always got a chance to win the game. So he would be my first signing.
Yeah.
I'd go for I want to get the spine of the team sorted, so I'd go for one of the keepers, Alisson or Edison at Man City or Liverpool. Get one of them sorted. Not only are the top keepers, they're like quarterbacks, by the way. They can hit 70-yarder straight on someone's foot. I seen that Edison once. I was in Man City v Everton. He put Sergio Aguero through with an 80-yard ping cross-fielder. He went through. I couldn't believe it. So you're not just getting a top keeper, you're getting someone who's going to start the attacks for you.
Brilliant. Lee, I want to ask you, because I know you keep your finger on the pulse, especially with the youngsters at Newcastle. Just a story that's just come out in the Athletics today. Forward Tom Allen, who is I think he's a 6'7" lad, if I remember rightly. A lot of the under-23 players, including Jack Young, Elliot Anderson, goalkeeper Dan Langley, and defender Lewis Katz. They're all players who've been put on standby with the potential of injuries. Obviously, could potentially lose players, etc. Like we thought at the start of the show. I mean, is any of those players you think we should look out for, and any of them who you think make the grade?
Well, Tom's already had an opportunity, hasn't he? He's had it in the cup and in a couple of substitute appearances later on in the league. And I think Steve's already showed that he's a manager who isn't afraid to give the youngsters an opportunity. With young Matty Longstaff, early part of the season. So, and yeah, those 5 or 6 players might get a chance because of this. It's like a mini World Cup, isn't it? The games in a short period of time, as we're saying, pick up injuries. if you have this problem with Dummett, you know, the squad's going to get depleted. And this is the chance that they crave, the local lads that want to go and live the dream that all us local lads, when we get the chance to play for the club, that's what you're basically doing. So then the opportunities with them, they know that the manager won't have any qualms about sticking them in ahead of senior players if he thinks they're better than them. And this is where they've got to grasp that opportunity, really. So, yeah, it could be positive for them. And if they do it, you know, they won't have a better feeling if they've, you know, been supporters of the club and they get that chance to play. The only problem they'll have is they're not stepping out into a full St James's Park, unfortunately, but they're still getting an opportunity to represent the club in the Premier League.
Yeah, Rob, I mean, it'll be good to see some more Geordie talent coming through, won't it? I mean, I know we're talking about Takeover, which essentially is going to make one of the richest clubs in the world, if not the richest, but Geordie talent coming through is still very important for Newcastle United.
Yeah, listen, I mentioned it many times, mate. When I got to the club, you know, we had Nash coming through, Steve Howie, Robbie Elliott, Steve Watson, Alan Thompson, and I've said for many, many years, you know, Andy Carroll's come through and Shoda and a few others you can mention, but for a club the size of Newcastle, you know, there certainly should be more players coming from. That's the infrastructure of the club that we've got to work on again. You know, that's what the new owners that come in have got to do. They've got to get back to trying to get players, young players, local players that actually can break through and get into the first team. You know, and that's it's. I mean, I remember Sir John Hall's quote many years ago when we first said that we had a team of Englishmen or Britishmen. It was a team of UK, and I remember him kind of, oh, this is brilliant. Like, there's no foreign players here, and he came out and said, oh, I can't wait till we've got 11 Geordies in the team. He said.
Aye, but he classed you as an adopted Geordie, so that was what about 7, including you then.
I thought cheeky sort of thought, look, when company come up. Geordie.
He's probably on one of them drinking sessions with Doug Ellis at the time.
Well, that was his dream. He wanted. I think that's every Geordie's dream, isn't it? The Geordies want to play for Newcastle, and the more they have, you certainly know that they'll work hard and they'll give their all for the club, which some players haven't over the years.
Great stuff, lads. Well, the clock's beaten with. It's been an absolute pleasure having you both on at the same time, and I'm sure, you know, if you're up there, we can maybe get back on next week together and look ahead to our first game of the Project Restart.
I'll bring the rosé next week, Nash.
Great, Rob. Bring the good stuff. The £4.50. We'll share it.
I'm going straight to the
Great to speak to you. Speak to you later.
Have a good week, lads. Speak to you next week.
You too. Bye.